Welcome to the SPL Rundown, your weekly look at the Smite Pro League. I'm your host, Apam, joined by two of my usual guest analysts, that is Rathan and Frost, and this week we have a special guest, the SML Superstar support, Genetics, joins us. Stick around a little bit later for my interview with the mid laner for Obey, Wolfie, but for now we're here to break down last week's games, and we'll start with Radiance versus Sanguine. And this one, I think it was a very close game, but Radiance was able to pull out the 2-0 victory here. You know, there was a pretty crazy game 2 that was really back and forth that ended up going 45 minutes long. What are you guys' initial thoughts on Radiance versus Sanguine?
I had the right prediction. I did say 2-0, right? Mm-hmm. I said if Radiance was playing well, but I gave it to them because I assumed that they'd have it all kind of figured out by now. But no, it's just Radiance has a very risky playstyle that when they're not all in check together, it falls apart in a very specific manner that Sanguine exclusively can take advantage of, and that's exactly what happened in this set.
Yeah, my predictions for the week were not good. So, I don't know. I was actually expecting Radiance to still be suffering from weeks past, like they have been.
I think I misspoke. I think Sanguine won this set. I misspoke in my my little spiel at the beginning.
Yeah, Sanguine won 2-0.
This was a set where game 2, Radiance tried to end pretty quickly. I think around like 21, 22 minutes.
Sanguine just turned it around.
Sanguine held it off on them and took it much later to about 45 minutes, and then eked it out, I guess. I don't know. It felt very, very back and forth.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was definitely going to go for Sanguine in this one if the in-game voting would have let me. I know it was broken, but I think Radiance struggled the weeks past. I've been having a lot of luck voting against them up until this week. And Sanguine looks like they are getting over their slump as well.
Genetics, how about you? Any thoughts on Radiance versus Sanguine? I think we sort of expected Radiance to maybe look a little bit better, but Sanguine held off.
This week was really weird from Radiance because they changed their strategies quite a lot. We've seen the Morrigan come back in. SHG played it as well, so they must have scrimmed with that. And also the Set and Tsukiyomi were really top picks. They were going for like quite dive-heavy comps.
Yep.
And they kind of, when you get comps like that, they're really unpredictable because you don't really kill tanks that well. And if you don't dive correctly, if you trade backlines, then the game just stalls.
Sure,
that's why the game 2 was so long. So it was just really chaotic, I think. But I think they were going for controlled chaos, but it didn't really work out in the end, unfortunately.
Yeah, it kind of seems like adapting has really been like one-tricking this Tsukiyomi, at least this past week. And it didn't, I think it was sort of 50-50. It didn't look great, but there are some games where it was able to do some work, and then a lot of games where, I'm looking at the game 2 slash line here versus Sanguine, and he goes like 3-11, which, I don't know, it's not really the adapting sort of kill spread that we expect to see.
Yeah, I think Tsukiyomi, because Tsukiyomi has no escape, sometimes if people dogpile on him and focus him really badly, he can get shut down. He's like a character that you have to focus, and if you do, you can kind of ruin him. But if he free casts, and the character can kind of just pop off, which I think he did in a few fights, to be fair.
Sure.
That was like the theme of the weekend, wasn't it? As one team, at least, it seemed in each game, was attempting a full 5-man dive comp.
Yeah.
I suppose it's like, is it as good as we think it is? And I think from the first 2 games that were attempted with it, not too much. Because like you said, one of 2 things happen. Either you trade out the back line and then the tanks are just kind of stuck there slapping each other, or you mess up your dive entirely and you get run down because all you have are W keys. There's really no space control, no S's, no A's, no D's.
Do you feel like some teams are playing like a little more counter-engaged style to maybe counter these dives?
Oh yeah, severely. Zeros was talking about that, saying that was more like a EU meta, because the way he sees it is, if you can survive the dive, like that's it. It is basically, with a dive comp, you have less overall DPS, but really high burst initial damage. If you can survive that first wave of damage, you turn it and you just run them down.
Sure.
I
think that
experienced
depends-
that under my tier 2 tower for 45 minutes the other night. They used everything on me, and then the game went 50 minutes.
Go ahead, Genetics.
I was gonna say that's especially correct on certain characters that kind of all in with their ultimates, and then their first 3 abilities kind of bad. So Tsukiyomi, for example, once he's in with his ultimate, he's kind of there. Like he can't dip in and out. So like a set TP's in, ults afterwards, the character's almost useless compared to a different pick. So you have to go in, and there's no counter engage really against that. You're kind of hoping to one shot back on, and if you don't, there's no comms. You just try for the best, really.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention about this set, and I think we'll talk about Set the God a little bit more as we go on through this week, is, we first saw it on PK before this sort of full dive meta really came to fruition. But now that we're here, where it seems like everyone wants to dive, we're seeing a lot more Set picked up by a lot more different players. You think we're going to see more of Set in other roles? I think maybe solo could be good, and even in the jungle, I think Set could be good. Is Set a pick that we think is going to explode a little bit as we get towards playoffs and worlds?
I mean, I think he's going to be a good pick, but I think if you get him, you put him in the mid lane. Like, I don't think you try and shove him anywhere else. I mean, maybe you play him in carry, right? I mean, It depends on your team, right? You either give it to Cyclone and it's in carry, or you give it to Paul in mid, right? Or Ven.
Really depends on the flavor of it, because as was said,
he's not going to play it, right? Like,
Set has a very all-in playstyle, but it's depending on what flavor of set you choose, where the all-in happens. If you're going for a carry set, it's going to be all right at the start. Whereas if you go for one of those tankier sets, low attack speed, they go into their ultimate, and it's a massive wind-up. Clones start coming out, and then big anime ult. So if we see Set, I think we're going to see the tankier variant.
Sure.
Junglers might go the hybrid style into a lean towards the tanky bit. But I think with these changes, with these metas, we're starting to go for that dive meta. But that counter engage, it's all slowly. I hope the changes before playoffs are not to slow it all down, because if we do that, we're stuck in a tank meta. We are so dangerously close to a tank meta.
Well, the one thing is Shell's getting nerfed, so you can't stack Shell block stacks anymore, and the one from the ruined set is Shell block stacks. I don't think Set will be playing anywhere apart from mid or ADC though. Frost is right, like Set ADC early game's broken, and then usually Set mid just hyper farms and then tries to win a team fight. But I don't really think Set mid's that good on anyone apart from Paul, and there's a few Set ADC players, so it's kind of sporadic in the league. I don't really think there's that many great Set players, to be honest, all around.
Sure.
Yeah, we've seen Lazarus try him out in the jungle, and it just went over
Maybe
well.
fine in the solo lane, but I don't know.
Ducky is a pretty solid set. He was playing that. What was it? End of last year.
Is it just the Glad
maybe.
Shield changes and the lack of sustain in solo lane that has taken him out of being productive in that lane?
I think it's just better characters. For example, Wukong, right? Like Wukong has a deal. He can go in the air. Cthulhu. There's better characters that have better ult. They're more mobile.
Sure.
They've got a better laning phase. I'm pretty sure Set has a bad laning phase as well. He's got no inbuilt CC. He's only got one damaging ability, really. His 2-3 don't do anything to the wave. So I think you just don't win the laning phase either, which means you're going to be behind in solo, which isn't ideal.
All right.
I think I get asked that question a lot. Like, what drives gods into the meta? Like, why isn't Medusa meta? They buffed her 5 times, and
because
it always
sucks.
Well, it comes down to a couple of things, right? Everybody likes to point out 1 or 2 abilities, but at the end of the day, there are just so many options that do the same thing better. That why would you pick that?
Sure.
Right? Why would you pick Medusa when Cupid exists or Rama exists? There's no reason.
Yeah.
I mean, she clears exactly the same. Her team fight ultimate's worse. Her dash blows Frost.
Yeah.
Does a lot of damage, but so does everybody. It's Cupid until they nerfed him. Cupid at 180% scaling on his one.
Yeah.
Right. So, in what world do you pick anything but that? So I don't know. I think, you may see somebody try and flex him, but that's going to be a very specific strat, and I think it's just going to be somebody trying to square peg a round hole.
Sure.
To try and make something work.
Because it wouldn't be that. I think the tankier version of Set is better, but Set excels in matchups where he can kill you. If he can't, he's just kind of losing by virtue of it. So it would have to be a carry or a mid or maybe a jungle Set, but those are even rarer after last season. Last season he was kind of prominent enough for it, but not now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh crap! Bobby and Alex are here. Shit.
Any final thoughts on?
Put this in. Obey Alliance need to be sponsored by the Heimlich maneuver with all this fucking choking. All right, we can.
Oh, I didn't see you guys there.
No, they're not in the door yet. Hey, who's here?
Hello.
Hey, who is it? Who's here? Yep, get it out of your system now, you little shit.
All right, let's wait for the dog to calm down.
Yep. I'll let these guys in. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
You know, why Set's coming back into meta, right?
Say that again.
How come?
You know why Set's coming back into meta, don't you?
Fancy skin.
It's because of ranked. It's genuinely because of ranked.
Fucking hell, are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious, dude. It's happened in the EU. Like last week in SML,
Yeah.
Set went from being not played to being first picked over a lot of shit. And it's like basically in ranked, there's a lot of Set one tricks in North America.
You want to do a
And
player
then
interview this
Paul
week?
played it 20. If you work
Okay,
his history, 20 games in a row.
Yeah,
Set.
APAM says
It just
he's going to message
bigs
you
up
again.
the pick and
Wolfie
run
says he'll do the interview.
Awesome. I will message him after we're done tonight. Okay.
All right.
That's because he's so good in rank, though. People are so
So people think like, and then what's good in ranked is actually good in comp most of the time.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
people try it, and then
Look at the entire team of Sanguine.
I mean, Sanguine a beast in ranked, dude.
I know. So say.
I don't know. I mean, you talk about rank, but I think we've seen Set in the SPL for, even early on in phase 2. I think Paul brought it out. So
against Cthulhu's, though.
Sure. I mean, it was situational.
Yeah.
But as the meta has evolved, I think we've seen it's not been super surprising in the SPL. Is sort of where I'm going to.
Yeah, it's just a bit unusual that a character that's got no changes of recent it comes back in. Like usually a public perception change to about like a god balance would usually bring it back in. But it's just kind of spiked, and also not just for one team, for a lot of teams.
For a lot, yeah.
So
sure.
I mean, like Venania, for example, like when would you expect Ven to play Set? I mean, when that comes out,
Right. Especially when
so something like that must have sparked something in scrims. Has to have happened for someone to go, yo, this match should be pretty good. We should probably give it a go.
Right. All right.
It happened with.
Go ahead.
It happened with Erlang like early last year. Nothing changed about him in like 14 patches, and then all of a sudden he was like top of the meta, like 70% win rates, picked in every SPL game. Nothing changed. Not the itemization, not the character, nothing.
I legitimately think it comes down to like characters like that. They come in and out of meta once attention is brought to the character being able to handle a carry and a tank.
Yeah.
Like Erlang, they're very good at handling carries and tanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also there, but it's that like team coordination that just is severely needed for her to work with. But that's also why I think Cupid's so highly valued NA, not EU. Cupid deals with tanks very easily. Just that massive field where a tank can't do anything because they don't really have they're not going to be the ones to get beads or anything.
No. He's in EU as well. Right. He's top pick in EU too.
Sure.
Oh yeah, we first pick him over. He's just below Person Umoja, but he's like third for us.
We're trying to get them.
I think it's SPL players being lazy, or like pro players being weird. Like they'll get bored. They genuinely will get bored of a pick. Like for example, last year Cali for Cherry literally won them 10 grand each at the MSI, and then Cali just like 5% tax bill on Vitalis, and and that's definitely not on good enough nerf. She's just gone now. So just players just are very particular and very weird. I think in scrims.
Sure.
Yeah, we kind of talk about like the pro player meta abuse a couple times on here. I name you usually because you always complain about hunters because you're a guardian.
I know.
You've complained about one support character since I've known you, and it was Jing Chen like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But it's not like but obviously like you complain about the things that impact you the most, right? Like, so
yeah, for sure.
If you're getting shredded by kins and everything else, and you're like, I feel fucking useless and I can't go anywhere.
No,
of course you're going to bitch about that.
That's not it, though. This is what I enjoy about genetics is he's not complaining about what the enemy hunter does to him. It's about how useless his hunters are when it's like, you have no reason to be this useless when you're so broken. That's what gets him absolutely.
That's Jingwei. You went on a rant where you hated Jingwei for like 6 straight months, even though she had the worst win rate out of any hunter, and you're like,
I don't care about win rate. Win rate doesn't matter. It's like, okay, I'm biased. I know I'm biased though. Like I understand I'm biased, and I know that. And like, you should, if you sieve half the shit I do, you're gonna find a golden egg in there that deserves to be nerfed. But
Right,
sometimes
but,
it's close
but the
to
problem
fix.
is that the average like person trying to understand the game doesn't sieve through this shit.
Well, that's
They
their
just
fault.
see,
That's their fault.
It's their fault.
they see the 90% shit and they're like, well, genetics said it, so I guess it's got to be. Shell is too weak now. We can't even pick the relic up anymore. Hirons don't know what they're doing. That's like it's such a weird thing how much like pros and like known community people dictate the meta. It's like crazy.
I don't think their influence is that
in
much.
the game, and you're like, no,
I
it's
really
good,
don't.
and everybody be like, yeah, of course.
I really
No.
don't, because like
And the Mojo down there.
Zap memes it with his like titles, where he's like, "All right, Trans is the new meta build for Hunter," but like that doesn't make it. That doesn't make any difference.
Started playing trans only on these guys last night. He rushed trans.
He does it on purpose. He does it on purpose.
Yeah, he does it on purpose to troll.
He
Like,
does it-
there's
he,
no
like,
way
he'll
it's
try
making
and
an
make
actual
trans meta.
impact.
He'll try and make trans meta, and then he'll like say, "Oh, trans is the best. Let's get this item buff." And he'll buff an item that was already good, or he'll whine about thorns every other day. Honestly,
He's always gonna whine about thorns. I mean, that's
They're gonna
Thorns
nerf
OP,
thorns.
because Zap doesn't stop pressing left click, so he just shoots into thorns and hopes that it bugs out.
And how's that, man?
They're gonna nerf thorns, by the way. I'm just telling you.
Sure.
He's
It's
just
gonna happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if Zapman says it's OP, then it must be broken.
7 years. He's essentially been like
Yeah.
the
At
lobby.
least he's been consistent. He's hated
Yeah,
thorns
true,
for a long time.
True.
He's a hunter lobbyist. If it's not crit, because he hates attack speed matters. He likes crit. He wants
I agree.
from the get go, always. And if it runs him down or stops him from pressing W and left click, he doesn't want it.
Yep.
So I know we were talking about Radiance versus Sanguine here, so maybe let's get back to it. Any final thoughts on this set before we move on to SSG versus Obey?
I believe the lads, or the Radiance boys at least, were definitely experimenting. I can't tell if Sanguine's experimenting because it's the same picks that they've been doing for the entire year.
Yep.
But yeah, as far as Radiance goes, you've got Herc, Suku, Mori, Erlang, Set Serb. That's what no, not Erlang. He was banned. That's just a full on, let's dive him.
Yeah, even with the Guan, I think Aurora picked Guan in game 1, and that's also just straight up diving from the support role. So
No, just the whole, let's see how a 5-man dive could work here.
sure.
And, honestly, you couldn't have picked a better team to run it against because you know that Sanguine's going to go like the meta, the strong meta, and it's the perfect like control test. If it can work here, it could maybe work elsewhere.
Sure. Anything else from you guys, Wraith or Genetics?
Yeah, just one thing. The Sanguine would have won. Radiant should have won game 2 twice, but they trolled the end once. A minion bugged out once, and when minion's supposed to path in a straight line, right? And it pathed to the right by about 2 meters and then came back in. So Titan didn't get backdoor protections. And the second time, when they all in Titan, I think Morrigan turned to Thor and went in the air. And rather than waiting for the tanks to tank Titan, he landed on Titan and tanked it and then got one shot. And then Cyclone went in on Titan when he tried to end, and he got hit by Titan. So they ended it. They messed up ending 3 times that game. So they should have won second game for sure. But
yeah, the mental must have been shattered for them after that game.
Right.
I know, yeah, for sure. I've seen it.
Once they have in their mind that this game should have been over, they're going to do everything in their power to make it with the next 5 minutes.
All right, then. Moving on to the next set of the week, which was Space Station Gaming versus Obey Alliance. And, this one, I think Obey did look better. They played the early game very well. They were able to sort of keep the pace, at least until the mid to late game. But, then the team fight sort of stage rolls around, and SSG, I think, has sort of cemented themselves as maybe the best team fighting team in our league here, maybe even better than Sanguine. I know we talked about Sanguine's prowess in Phase 1 and early Phase 2, but SSG have even looked better than that, and, Game 2 was just a quick demolishment from SSG there. Any thoughts on this? What I have here is SSG is still on top of the league after this win versus Obey.
Yeah, I feel like game 1, Obey had it. I thought they played really well. I don't remember what caused it to collapse. I think it was like a bad fight at the Phoenix, but I can't remember.
It was a fire giant
thinking-
fight.
I think it was
Was
Fire
it the
Giant.
FG fight?
Yeah, it was
maybe I'm
another-
thinking
It was
of
just
later
a-
in the week.
it was
I
just
think
a
I'm thinking later in the
random
week
engaged.
against Radiance. But no, that was sad to see because I actually thought they were going to pull it out or at least make it a 2-1 and get some respect, and it didn't end up going their way. I thought they played great, especially the first game. But I don't know. It's kind of like, and they're in the other room, so. But it's kind of like typical Obey, right? Where they play super well, and they show that they can like really take it to teams, and it's just like that last. I feel like I've said like a broken record. It's that last little bit closing the games out that they have a problem with, and I think once they get that figured out, or if they can before the tournament, they're going to be just fine.
Genetics, Frost, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty to talk about. I mean, the first thing is to recognize is I thought what they did with the Athena solo and the Stone Cutting Sword and the On Her passive. So objective like about 90 physical prots.
Mm-hmm.
So they just halved it. They just removed half the prots.
Sure.
Athena ulted over, nothing they can do about it. So I think second game they probably cons that strategy because the On Her did go mid. They actually had no magical damage at all really for frontline. So they were basically playing an objective comp. And I think it really shows. And then there's the best thing about Obey is like they're not like Renegades who generally copy other picks like the set mid, for example.
Right.
Obey play Obey. Like they play,
Yep.
they will pick a strategy. So for example, the Cupid Ra like became meta and is meta in EU right now, and is meta in everywhere in ranked.
Yep.
They pick Cupid Ra every game. People started banning it. So they thought of a new strategy. Let's go stone cutting and on her, and let's just do objectives. And they should have won first game. I think SSG have a tendency to win one fight with like either a big Ganesh or a bigger Emerald. Always happens. And then second game, if you can't sneak the objectives like they did in the first game when they snuck about 4 objectives for free, you're not going to snowball a game fast enough with no mage or no magical damage to frontline because all they do is stack Sov, Jademps, physical defense, run at your carries, and you can't do anything. But it was a good set. The first game was intense. They just
that was one of my favorite games to watch.
I didn't even know how the team fight ended. It would have been one engage or one random thing. I think SSG have got just some magic with it. One engage and they just win, and the game's just even again all of a sudden after like a 20k lead or something.
Yeah, I think mostly that comes down to punishing the smallest mistake for as much as you can get away with. And I think at the highest level, the teams that can get the most out of the smallest mistakes are going to go the furthest.
Especially in team fights as well.
Yeah,
just SSG I think Sanguine, I think you mentioned earlier Sanguine and SSG being really good at team fighting. Sanguine are really good because their carries are really aggressive on the same page. I think when SSG gets an engage, from an outside point of view, you can kind of see the fight's kind of over. Like they'll get like a 5-man Ganesh shot and you'll be like, wow, like that. There's nothing they can do anymore. And everyone just runs away straight away. So
I think SSG is really good at stalling games out until they get to a point where it's a 50-50 team fight that decides the game. Like, it like kind of like what you said, Genetics. It's like if that Ganesh ult or the Yama ult or whatever is just off by just a bit, right? Like goes the complete opposite direction, but they win. It ends up being a 50-50, but they win them more often than not. You know what I mean?
It's not 50-50, it's a 90-10 in front of us.
Yeah, it's a 90-10.
Yeah.
But like, whoever basically to a point where it's like, all right, whoever wins the next team fight wins the game, and then they do. And that's it. And they could have lost the entire early game, blown every objective, and they stall until they get to that point. And I think the only people who have really taken sets or taken games off of them have won those late game 50-50s. I'm trying to think of the last time they just got stomped or they got.
I think it was Ghost, wasn't it? Ghost.
Either
and Ghost beat them by playing the map better as well. It's not even by team fights. Nobody beat. I don't think anyone beats them in team fights. Honestly,
but it still came down to a late game team fight when Ghost was beating them, didn't it?
Oh really? Was it? I thought Ghost were always ahead. I might have been wrong about that. I thought Ghost stomped them all 3 games. Maybe it was a bad team fight.
From my memory, which is probably failing me after 111 characters. I just recall sort of map dominance and draft advantages.
You can't ban them. We talked about that.
I don't think Ghost play SSG's game, but they were very well aware of it, and they kind of draft around it. Like when Cherry was going on a complete romp with Kali, they just picked Nuwa and all these other characters. They can stay away from her until she's done with the ultimate, and then boom, Nuwa ult.
Yep.
But for this one, what was I getting at there? Oh yeah, my prediction kind of came true. Well, the first half of it, I said Bobby was going to pick Ymir, and he did in game 2. But I don't know if he was punished severely enough because that's a game where you pick Ymir that you are going to get. Looks like. Yeah, the entire team with one wall, you could do that, but then they turn on you. I don't know if they punished him enough to the point where he just goes, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna pick up this character again. That kind of
right.
I do gotta. Okay, sure.
Bobby, Stop picking Ymir.
I do want to mention that Cheerio played Ama in the jungle game too, and there were a bit of shenanigans. I don't know if you guys watched the Hazer's post-game interview. I think he was interviewing.
I heard about this.
Interviewing Nika, and Nika just didn't want to play Ama because he's been getting it too many times, and so somehow Cherry ends up with Ama in the jungle. You know, I know we've seen it in the stream and things like that. Is Ama even viable in the jungle at all? This is kind of a weird build too. Ichaival, Frostbound, a lot of interesting things happening.
Yeah, she's a disgusting character in general, and you can throw some katanas on her and a ninja tabby, and she will run you down. She has like one of the most broken passives in the game. I've run her in the jungle a couple of times in like some games that were pretty. I don't want to call them serious. It's 5-stack casuals on a Friday, but you know, that's a little more competitive than the
those
SPL,
are sweaty, man. Those get sweaty. Okay,
they do. People don't believe me that casuals are more sweaty than ranked.
Oh yeah, assault, absolutely.
Friday night 5-stackers is the best games you'll ever have because everybody's in a 5-man party with comms. But no, she's good, man. I think you can make it work, right? You gotta wait. It's like anything else. You gotta wait till you get Golden Blade online, or I don't know if he even went Golden Blade.
I don't think he did. I think he went straight into stone cutting.
Oh, then you're relying on the 2 to proc and clear. Yep. But
it's for an objective rush, I think. I'm a passive and I'm a one
passive
and stone cutting basically for objectives.
Yeah, passive 1 stone cutting, and you just burn everything to the ground.
It's terrible though. It's not good.
No, it's good.
I really. Here's the thing, like Amaterasu was top pick in the league for everyone about a few months ago, and now it's literally only Nika that plays it, and
more.
It's so weird. I mean, personally, I think the character's got a really good base kit in terms of the 1 and the ult and the passive, but the 2 and the 3 are generally quite bad abilities for warriors. It's kind of hard to commit a dash late game. The 2's good damage, but it's not massive, and she hasn't got much.
It's really just there for the. It's just there for the damage mitigation late game.
Yeah, but it's just not. It's only 15% though. The characters. It just doesn't seem. I don't think the character's as good as. I just think they're making it work. Personally, I don't think she's actually that good. Definitely not in jungle as well.
I think it's SG for an SSG comp, not for.
Yeah, I think it's just SSG being SSG, like more than anything, in my opinion. It's been a bit cheeky.
You think they're? Go ahead.
I was gonna say I've run her in the jungle. The reason I like her is the same reason I like Thanatos and Pele. You just zoom around the map and power farm, get like a 2-level lead, and you just bop people. I mean, I'm not saying that's what they did here, but I don't think she's as bad. I don't think there's a lot of times where people are like, oh, that's shit. Like Shock is shit in solo. It's yeah, he's definitely not as good as everybody else, but like, it's one of those things where like, I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, but it's not as good as everything else that you could pick, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like, you could make it work. You can make almost anything work. Right? Ducky's out there playing Nox solo, getting her buffed, a little asshole.
Yep.
Ducky single-handedly ran her win rate down so far that they were forced to do it.
I sincerely hope that's not the case. Do you think, for SSG at least, it may be a bit of, as long as they're not going to ban Ama, we're just going to take it because we know we're going to have a good matchup with it no matter what, no matter where we put it?
No, I think they picked it for Nika, and Nika didn't want to play it.
Well, I mean, like, this could be a way to, in the future, force targeted bans out against Ama, right? Like, if you know they're always going to pick Ama no matter what, you know, you can, like...
I think you'd be giving Nika some relief, and he'd play better, because he gets to play something that she wants. No, force him to either stick her in the comp somewhere, or force Nika to fall asleep at the wheel. Give them the Amaterasu. Play around it, don't target ban it.
Sure.
I think Dardez is more lethal. Or
I was gonna say, I feel like
you could be more impactful with bans, but not Nika.
I feel like every other week we talk about trying to ban out SSG, and it comes down to the same thing of like, who are you gonna ban? Like,
well, Zero's had a pretty good idea.
Ban out Dardez.
Zero's had a good idea.
Gets whatever he wants.
Zero's had a good idea of banning out peeling supports that Raffer especially uses to keep his carries alive. I think Sobek was at the top of that list. Maybe even Ganesh, Kepri, those sorts of picks. We haven't really seen teams go towards that at all. Is that maybe a mistake on other teams' parts?
I think there's just far too many of them, because let's say, theoretically, let's ban out Raffer here. So we're going to take away Sobek, Capri, and what was the other one you said?
Ganesh. Yeah, Ganesh.
Okay. He still has his Geb. He loves his Geb. He still has his Shin. Who's got behind that? All the
Cardio.
Kuzin, Christ.
I mean, Achilles. You know, the list goes on, right?
Yeah, and that's only for the Guardian ones.
Yeah,
he has a very big god pool, and there's a lot of traditional control Peely style supports that he can lean into, which is kind of interesting to see with his builds right now. I've been seeing these builds on Kuzin, and it's kind of been irking me to the point where I just want to punch my monitor. But they work on peel oriented supports where it's just nothing but defense. You got Guardians, Boots, Sovereignty, Mantle, Emperor,
or every aura.
It's just pure protections and no damage.
Sure. Any final thoughts on Space Station Gaming versus Obey?
They are the gentleman squad. They are relics of the past, still kicking ass in the future and showing us that EU is still as dominant as ever.
Sure.
Even the league is all North America.
Radiance versus PK. This is one of the postponed matches from last week that is being played. That was played, or postponed matches from 2 weeks ago that was played last week, and I think we all expected maybe PK to win. Radiance has sort of been slipping a little bit, but Radiance come out strong and take this 2-0. You know, it was pretty, or not 2-0. I think it was 2-1. Radiance take it. PK looked kind of cold, I want to say. I don't like saying rusty. Maybe just, the blood wasn't flowing for them game 1. It was a pretty quick one from Radiance. But games 2 and 3 were really very much back and forth, I believe. What are you guys' initial impressions of this PK Radiance set?
I feel we go into every set, we talk about whether or not like somebody did well or somebody else played really poorly. And I think, just to your point, Pam, this is like it did seem like the Knights were a little anemic. They got a game, but I don't think I don't think it's anywhere near the way we've seen them play against a lot of the other top teams. It's kind of weird because they've been like rising to the occasion lately. And it seems like I don't want to say they may have like took Radiance for granted, but it certainly seems like it because they did not seem like they were coming out playing like they know how to.
Sure. Froster Genetics, any initial thoughts?
I think
the bands. So yeah, go on.
I just thought the main thing was the first game was extremely clean by Radiance. I mean, they played the same dive comp again: Morrigan, Tsukiyomi, Sek, Guanyu. So it's something they've done in practice clearly against someone. But again, if you can get that ball rolling, you are going to snowball a game. So they probably had a few fights where they won, and then from that point you can't really lose.
Right.
And then I think the most interesting thing was game 3 for me was the weirdest one. They've kind of ditched everything. They've picked up a random Discordia. They picked up a random Cerberus.
Right.
Cupid, which we know is meta and we know is being played, but Cyclone's not really what you see as a Cupid player. So it's just kind of weird how they've been practicing clearly one style all week, and then they whipped out a random game 3 pick and managed to take the set from PK.
Well, I mean, PK, they did ban the set. Radiance, that is, banned the set from themselves, sort of. PK did ban Morrigan. I don't know, maybe that sort of threw a little wrench into their game plan. I did want to mention that in games 2 and 3, Neil picked up the Odin support, which is something that we haven't seen. I don't think we've really even seen Odin in the SPL in Phase 2 very much at all, if at all, for that matter. What are you guys' thoughts on Odin support and, this PK comp that even looked pretty good in game 3, I want to say?
Not really a fan.
No?
To me, it feels like Odin depends on his passive so much, but the opportunities that you get with the cage is rarely to ever get the kill in the cage, and then he just kind of falls off late game. So I've never really been a fan of it. He is very annoying. You go in on an Odin, he uses his kit, and then he pops up the shield as soon as you think he's about to die. Now he's got his health back, and then it just takes off again. But it really come down to almost a curse in the league. If you get a character or an item that depends on you getting kills in a very specific manner, I just think it's way too risky on top of playing any risky sort of playstyle, because you're already playing a not Guardian character, and he just gets even riskier on top of that.
Gen X, how about yourself? I mean, you're our support genius
Yeah.
here. What do you think about the Odin?
Well, I remember playing against when there used to be old Obey with Rafa, Twig, when they used to combine with Prime as well. They used to play Odin support loads in jungle, Odin jungle with Zeus. I remember playing against it and we scrimmed them and they were like, my guys said, why don't you play it? And I never liked it. The problem with Odin is that even with the new 3 now, you have to hold the spear, and the 1-2 are kind of useless in support. The 2 is good for surviving, but the 1's pretty bad. I think they locked it in game 2 and 3 after the enemy locked in Cupid Tsukiyomi. Again, like Tsukiyomi early, like he's got a mobility, so if you blink cage him, you can trap him in before he can do anything.
Sure.
And it's kind of weird as well. We've seen this like a physical support meta now in SPL happen, like Guan Yu, Odin. I mean, Hercules has been around for a while, but you don't really see these weird off-meta warriors. Even Nike, right, I think was picked later on in the week too.
Yeah, I think maybe PBM picked it up, right?
I think was it someone else? Was it just PBM twice? Maybe it's just a weird meta thing now that everyone's also not going Thebes first time; they're going Thebes second time. So it just must be a weird support phase that everyone's going through in scrims, where some people are probably getting run over if they don't pick the physicals, and they're getting run over if they don't pick the Sov. It's probably affecting SPL games.
Interesting.
It's a strange amalgamation too. I'm not going to be the first one to go, oh, Odin support doesn't work here, or with the Nike, or because we're seeing a lot of physical heavy comps right now. If you're going to play a warrior whose strengths are a little more damaged than like traditional Guardian, but you're going to build him like a Guardian, you might as well have gone the Guardian route.
Sure. Especially because I think they probably there are some Guardian power items, I think, or like mage items that you can slot into the Guardian build to give them a bit more of that dive potential if you need them to.
Yeah, do that with warriors too. And you pick up Heartseeker.
I don't know. I feel like Heartseeker on warriors is maybe less impactful than Soul Reaver on like a Guardian. I don't know.
Well, E-Staff, yeah, I guess. The Xing Chen Staff of Mirrodin.
Sure, yeah, like that feels pretty impactful.
That's broken.
Yeah, that's busted. I did that the other day.
No damage and free soapy.
I put my brother on that a couple days ago. Gave him that bill and had him go staff like 4th item. I was like, all you have to do is hit the carries twice with your 1 and we'll be fine.
No damage for like 3.5 seconds.
Oh, forever.
Get enough Freya's face and just yell at her.
It's like 9 block stacks or some shit like that, right?
Anyway. We've talked a little bit about it being a dive meta now. Is there a reason why we don't see some of the more aggressive Guardians make their way in support? Like, I feel like Kabrakan could be a pretty highly valued pick in this meta, just being able to delete carries if you wanted to in the late game.
I think it's the weird amalgamation. If you're going to go a dive comp, they're basically trying to have their cake and eat it. They want to draft these dive characters, but they also want peel. Like
sure.
You can't do both.
You're right.
Odin with this build is just for the character. Not saying Neil's pathetic, but for the character, it makes Odin pathetic. You got no sense of damage in any way, shape, or form. As Genetic stated before, that kid's pretty bad for like if you actually intend to peel for your carries. If you want to get in on somebody, go for the more like the fight-oriented items.
I think it's to do with Thorns. Actually, I'm looking at the games. I'm looking at the Relic Sport.
Sure.
And this week is the most I've ever seen Thorns built on support. Like I'm pretty sure it must have been built about 6 times this week. And both on Nike, Kuzumbo, Odin, Guan Yu support build Thorns as well. It must be a meta thing, and it must have happened in scrims where solve first item, picking pressure warriors and building Thorns, and kind of picking unavoidable damage. It's the reason why Kabrakan probably isn't going to be played is that Kabrakan's kind of bad in laning phase, and he's also reliant on Blink, and Blink got nerfed a while ago. So if you're reliant on Blink and a long cooldown, generally the character's not too great. For example, like Cerberus, right? Cerb can engage with the range stun on a frontliner and then ult him, and he can also just blink as well. So he doesn't need to just blink ult. He's got other stuff in his kit that makes up for that. It's probably one reason.
Yeah, and like half the other supports can just counter Kabrakan's 3 level 1. Just push him out so you lose all that pressure. I feel like pretty much everybody's in the meta right now. You could knock him up in some way, or
everyone's got a CC and duel in.
Yeah, exactly. Like everybody's in the meta, right? Like, I mean, I guess if it was like if it was like Athena on the other side or something like that, where they'd have to get their taunt to interrupt you or anything like that, then maybe he would do better. But everything I can think of right now, all the the Jings, the Hercs, the Sobeks, everybody can get something that actually has value level 1 and will interrupt you.
Yeah.
Which I think kind of screws him.
All right.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Gen X, but that would be my analysis.
Yeah, it's kind of accurate. I mean, it's like there's just some gods that if you don't get pressure on wave 1, guaranteed, you're not going to have pressure in duel, and you just sat on the tower.
Right,
and if you're a guardian, if they pick a pressure warrior, like for example, I think that's why Hercules is so good. Is even if Herc loses first wave by like magic, you still have the range 2 and the range 1 and the 1. So what's Kabrakan got? He's got melee 1, melee 2. He's got 3 that can be interrupted. So it's just power spikes in lane are just terrible. And I think there's a lot of pressure right now. There seems to be a lot of pressure with just running it down. So that's not going to work anymore, I don't think.
All right. Moving on to Ghost versus PK. And after a tough Radiance loss earlier, PK come back strong, beat Ghost, I believe a 2-0 sweep over Ghost. After not being able to beat any of the top 4 teams, PK has sort of come out strong in the back half of Phase 2, beating both SSG and Ghost recently. Is PK maybe a dark horse leading up to playoffs and Worlds right now?
They did the same shit last year. They're doing the same shit this year.
Sure.
They absolutely are. Absolutely. I honestly, part of me wants to believe they've just been lazy this whole year. And they're finally turning the juice on.
And that
not really. I mean, obviously you get paid if you win. So I'm not I say that with a smile on my face, but
right.
They look good. Other than the Radiant set where I think they just didn't try, or it seemed like they just didn't try, they've looked really good.
Frost, you're
the
about
wins
to say
against
something?
Goats were clean.
Yeah.
Like clean wins.
Sure.
No, I think it's just their MO. These guys are momentum, and the more they don't have any intrinsic motivation. I think it's all external for these guys, knowing that here come Worlds, we've got to button up and do what we can here. And then the matches were game 1 at least was just a slobber knocker back and forth until Ghost throw in between towers.
Yeah.
Yeah, here comes, what was it, Twig come in with a double or something like that, but then Paul Set comes through with a quadra or something. I think it was
a triple. I don't know if it was a quadra, but Paul definitely was on a cleanup crew. It was a 19-minute deicide, right?
Yeah. It was absolutely. In that same vein of Ghost and Radiance are kind of similar. They have an all-in, high-risk, high-reward, but if we slip up somewhere, which they did severely, then and you're matched up against a team who knows how to punish you, because PK right now, they all phase, they just run at you. And then when they go, all right, we're cleaning it up because we're making a run, they play severely well on the back foot.
Sure.
They counter punches.
Genetics, any thoughts on this set?
I think PK's drafting was better this set than the set previously. So one thing about Ghost is Ghost don't pick a lot of peel supports like SSG, for example. So they picked the Nike support, which doesn't have any peel. It has none. And then PK have got a Kuzumbo, a Set, a Kama, a Cthulhu. I mean, no one's going to survive that unless they've got a Kepri or a Yamurja, for example. And then you've also got a Heim who can't be dived. So even though they lost the early game, late game team fights will be super easy. All you do is you blink in and you go. And you're going to run someone down eventually and someone's going to die. And because your Heim can get out, there's never a backline trade. Your Hunter's always alive, and then therefore you can do fire and you can do Phoenixes. I don't know. I just think Ghost PK to me is always a matchup that's always really weird because traditionally PK, or at least the Zapman Neil, have always done really well against Ghost. On E United versus what was their team called?
Trifecta.
E United versus Trifecta.
Yeah.
They beat them. I mean, I beat the Trifecta team, and in my SML roster,
you're the best player in the world.
You guys did really well during that gauntlet. What happened? How come you didn't go as far as you wanted to?
Childish attitudes on the team. But yeah, they've done really well against them, and then they just knocked them out of the tournament. And they knocked, I think it was the United era they were called back then, and they just knocked them out of the tournament randomly. Yep. And then last year they beat them there in the finals, which in my opinion were favoured in rivals' favour. And then I just think they have a really good matchup. It's quite a clash of NA chaos style. I think Neil and PBM are really quite random, and they affect the maps in a lot of different ways. So I think it's when they clash, it just becomes crazy a lot of the time.
One thing I wanted to mention, especially about picks and bans, is whenever the set gets banned, I think PK are looking to ban Cthulhu, And if PK are able to get set, they feel very comfortable picking Cthulhu. I feel like we've seen this in a couple of their sets recently, where they feel like the only counter to Cthulhu maybe is set. And as long as, that's on the board or they have it, they can feel comfortable taking Cthulhu into solo lane.
Basically, yeah. I mean, the only individual counters to Cthulhu are Set and Kali. The Set can actually run a lane. And so if you get both of them, well, why not? All the better. You've got your own counter on your own team. You're fine there. Sure. And just their draft was way better overall. They didn't go for a full dive because they have the Heim. I mean, Heim can dive too, but like was stated, you got the beef roast to get out of there. You got the ult to get out of there, and Panic Hat was suffering. The only time Panic Hat could actually survive was when he dove with the rest of his team. But I'd love to see Ghost get away from the Cupid. If they do intend to keep on going with this style, Cupid is like the most diveable hunter. He's just got one dash. That's it. It's Fields of Love and some hearts. Neat.
I think you're right, though. I think looking at the patterns in picks and bans, the first thing to notice is that Ghost banned Odin in the first game.
Yep.
So the Ghost must have been played in scrims 2 weeks before that, because people don't scrim a week before they play each other. Mm-hmm. And then when the set was chosen, they could pick Cthulhu. And then the second game, when set was banned, because Cthulhu was open, and they probably do think set count as Cthulhu, Heim got insta-locked, because Heim is one of the best hunters versus Cthulhu, because worst case scenario, if you're getting chased down, all you have to do is spend a 30-second TP cooldown for a 100-second Cthulhu ult. Sure, they probably valued Cthulhu extremely highly. It didn't happen. Ghost didn't pick it turns out, but they probably had that in the back of their minds thinking about the set and the Cthulhu trade for sure.
Just an oddity all around too with the builds. Like, you go with the Nike, but you've got this very if I need to, I can peel from my team, but you got a knock up, and I guess when set comes in for you, you can press 2 and he's not hitting anything. Does that still set off the clones?
You can't do damage, right?
It would be blocked, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it would spawn clones.
I think the Nike support big. I don't think the Nike was that good in support.
No, not at all.
Neither the Guan Yu either. I don't know. I mean, I'm biased because I play sports. I'm gonna have a lot more strong. My opinions are usually quite strong, but I just don't like those two characters in support. I think it's just the thorns. It's warriors with thorns and sledge, and then you just pick a random character, just spin a wheel, and then
that's the support pick.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that's what it seems like an SPL right now. Kuzenberg counts as a warrior because of his damage.
Sure. It did seem strange that they put Sobek in solo lane, especially with Final K being so proficient on Nike. Kind of seems like Sobek might have been better in support, at least in that game 1. For Ghost, that is.
Yeah. I mean, usually from a pick and ban perspective, in some teams, some players, for example, Scream, whenever he would lose a game in a character, he has a pattern where he won't play it again in the next game. It just and you won't ever hear it, but it won't pop up. Even if it's the best game for it, there's no way he's going to pick it. So there could have been some sort of not arguments, but there could have been some conversations saying, well, I didn't really feel that great, or they're playing against it quite well, and then one player's like, well, we've picked it now, I'll give it a go, and then it just kind of, it's mentally you might not want to play it anymore, even though they still value it.
Sure. All right, last thing I wanted to bring up was we saw a bit of a weird build on Twig with his Hebo in Game 2, rushing the Karen's Coin. I don't think we've really seen the Karen's Coin rush from any of the other mid laners in the SPL. Is this something that you guys think could do well? I mean, 20% magical protection shred, or penetration, right, is pretty useful, I would think, especially early on. You get to stack it up quicker. What are your guys' thoughts on the Hebo Karen's rush?
Well, if you're going to go kind of hybrid style, because we know Twig, he loves to go burst on Hubwa, but this was like a stay in a fight kind of.
Yeah, he went Stone of Binding and E-Staff later on.
It's like we draft 4 physicals, so I'm going to steal protections from them. But now, Karen's Coin is really good on characters that have high damage innately. Or it only takes 1 or 2 items, and then you have high damage, essentially. Like, I'm surprised we don't see Karen's Coin on some Guardians, because it goes well with base damage. But on its own, 80 power for that much protection is just kind of a really odd item for a slot.
Yeah, it's like one of the weaker early game power items.
Is the 20% penetration not worth it?
No, it's
That-
definitely worth it, but it needs power, and because
Yeah, you need.
now that's a little less power that you have for that one.
Sure.
Yeah, like I could shred all of your prots, but if I have no power, I don't do any damage. Or,
Right.
I mean, I'm doing the base damage of the ability, right? And I mean, Evo's got pretty high scaling, right? So it's a weird pick. The only reason I could see doing it is if you feel like the game's going to go on forever and you get it early so that you can actually take advantage of the stacks. Most of the times I see it as like wicked late, like 4th or 5th item.
Did he get it stacked?
I don't even know.
No,
I'm not sure.
Only involved in 4 kills.
They were definitely playing not cocky, but I always say players who pick items that need kills are just cursing the game. I will report you in my games if you build Hide of the Urchin or Karen's Coin, because I know we're not going to get any kills. And they went 7 to 23, 1 Karen's Coin and 1 Hide of the Urchin. Neither got stacked.
Yeah,
I think he's built it for a different. I think he's built it for a different reason. So I'm pretty sure. So he looked at the enemy combo, and when you're against a Kuzumbo, the best thing you can do is build prots because it ruins his thorns and his damage, and usually Pika dive quite a lot. So he's probably thinking, okay, I want to need some bruiser items here. So Stone of Binding, great bruiser item, the penetration or the pro reduction, and then the power and the pro. It's what you need. The ethereal stat's kind of a similar thing. Like you're increasing your effective HP, but then the problem with that is that you've got no percentage pen. So if the game gets to a stage where you need it, you're going to lose. And usually people go a flat pen item because they're more effective early game because people have less prots. So he's probably built into what was going to be a Doom Orb, and then thought, actually, I need to build tanky here, and he's changed it to a coin. Just not for then, but for like 4 items later, when he's like,
Right.
He needs 20% penetration at that point. And it's not like he needs to rush out of game items, right? He has 4 physicals on his team. He's got a warrior support and a warrior solo. He's got that pressure.
Right.
So his damage doesn't really matter. As long as he does damage 5 items in, that's all that matters, really. So I think it was a scaling item. I hope. I can't really see any other reason apart from that why that was the build.
I can think of one other reason that would be the build. And only one other reason.
SmiteTroll.com?
Nope, he misclicked and walked out of base and went up the wrong tree.
Sure.
Probably. The other thing, he would have.
Isn't Doom Orb on the left?
No,
Yeah, Doom Orb's
right.
on a different tree.
Doom Orb's on the right, coins on the left, no?
Yep, coins on the left.
Coins on the left. Coins on the left with Tahuti and Chronos Pennant. Doom Orb's on the right.
That's quite a big gap.
That is quite
Yes.
a big gap.
And Twig loves Tahuti, so maybe.
Yeah, he does.
All right,
Oh, I
anything? Go ahead, Frost.
Oh, actually, that might have been it. Did he die early or something like that, and he didn't have the gold for Tahuti, so he bought the coin?
I don't think he
That's
died until that fight between towers.
That's
This
the
is
only
game
other
2,
thing I
right?
can
This is
think
game 2,
is that
yeah.
he backed and didn't have the 1600.
Game
gold
3
for
had
Tahuti.
7. I just think what I said. I just don't understand. I mean, it is Twig. Twig does build traditionally quite weird and obscure.
Sure. Yes.
Like when we played Osiris, but I don't know. Maybe happen. The thing is, if you do this build and scrims, win 100 out of 100 times, it doesn't matter the reasoning behind it. You're always going to do it. So they could have had results with it.
Sure. Anything?
yeah.
Anything I missed in the set, Frost?
Well, I think it does come down to matchups. I believe Ghost expect PK to butt heads with them in the same manner that Radiance do. Radiance and Ghost clashing is like, this is going to be 3 hours. I think they had like the longest, or at least one of the 3 longest matches in the SPL that we've ever had with that showdown at MSI. I can't remember what the longest one ever was, but it went over an hour as it kept on going. But PK don't butt heads with you whenever they're playing clean. They're just setting up and waiting for you. Zap goes from being one of the most aggressive, getting soloed, almost inting on his own just because he can, to that 3 is getting used to get me out. I will ult to get out of here. Like, he doesn't. You can watch him play. He does not use Heim ult defensively. But in the SPL, when it really matters, when it really comes down to it, he can play that defensive play style. And I think that just causes Ghost to have a bit of a Charlie Brown running to kick the football, and it just gets pulled out from underneath him.
Sure. All right, then, moving on to the next set of the week, which was Space Station Gaming versus the Renegades. I think we can all agree that the Renegades have looked much better, especially the early game looked very good for them. But SSG's calling card is the mid and the late games, and when the game gets to maybe 20, 25 minutes, I feel like SSG is always going to win the team fights. What is SSG doing here to sort of stem the tide, or not stem the tide, but use the momentum in their favor to win these sort of mid and late game team fights against almost every team in the SPL?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. No
Nobody
one knows
knows
what the secret juice is.
From other point of views, I talk with Big Man and Kenny quite a lot, and with SSG themselves, just one fight. It's just they'll just find it. It's people have just got a magnet to let them to get that one engage, and just there's no pattern. It just happens every time.
They're so good at picking those fights that they want. They're just, I don't know.
It really just comes down to timing. As the game progresses, a fight becomes more daunting because you can take more out of it. Let's say that you do have a 5-man fight within the first 2 minutes, and there's a full deicide. You can maybe take 2 buff camps from that. Maybe do a Gold Fury, and almost everyone on your team dies. But since they take it nice and slow, once they do start fighting, there's way more on the line for those fights, and they're just better prepared for it because they just focused on farming up for it.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Basically, you're saying like 2 kills 25 minutes in is a whole lot more impactful than 2 kills 10 minutes in.
Oh yeah. If they could like play it out, 0 kills till 40 minutes, that one death, 40 minutes is way more impactful than 5 deaths at 5 minutes. It's just the nature.
Maybe the perfect SSG scoreline is like 1-0 in the kills at a 45-minute victory. I did want to mention about the Renegades, though. They did something interesting here in that they let Afro through to Dardes, in both of these games. Zero's last week says, I don't know why Afro is so highly picked. You just kill the Afro. But apparently Afro does a lot of work in these games. Is it weird that Renegades let Afro through? You think maybe they should have banned it? Or was this maybe some experimentation looking forward to playoffs and Worlds?
I think the latter. Renegades haven't shown really that they either respect or fear the teams that they've gone against to the point where they're not really looking for ban outs. Unlike the last set where it was Ghost PK, they took like 3-4 bans on Paul alone, trying to push him to see how far he'd take it. These guys, I think they're just, all right, let's get their flavors out. Let's see what it really tastes like.
I think it also has to do with everybody banning out Dardes' Afro for the last 7 weeks. I'm sure at some point somebody on Renegades had to be like, is this Afro even that good? Or somebody's got to be like, well, his Hera's obviously strong, so we can't let that through. We know he's good on Hera now. Does the Afro still hold strong? Would you rather take a risk against that or something else that he's got in the tank?
To pick up on that, that's what happens. It happens in cycles. So we know that top picks for SSG right now are Amma, Erlang, Afro, Hera. You can only ban one. You can only ban 3 of them. So each time an opponent will play them, they'll be like, okay, well, we're most comfortable against the Hera. They'll let it open, and if SSG win with the Hera for the next 3 weeks, every team will be like, well, nope, they've just beaten Ghost with it. We have to ban it. And then next week it'll be, well, they just won with the Hera, so let's try the Afro. So even though Renegades have tried to have a go against it, the fact they've lost against it now means that SSG aren't going to get Aphrodite again for another 5 weeks until some other team tries it. And it's going to happen. And this is really important for SSG because people are going to try. The Erlang's been added now as well after Cherry got 2 Quadras. The Ganesh is being added too. It's just, they seem very, very hard to ban against. And every time someone tests them, they just keep solidifying how hard they are to draft against.
Sure, especially because you start banning some of these comfort picks, and before you know it, Yamoja comes through, and that's never going to go well for you.
Well, Rafa added that to his god pool as well recently. Rafa could never play Yamoja than about 3 months ago. I think we started seeing it, and they were still winning with it. And I think Rafa was putting on some quite good individual performances. So, and Yamoja's probably the best god in the game. I reckon she's rated the best god in the game right now.
I would agree
overall, and I think so. I think so for sure, but.
Do you like playing her?
Not in this set, though, because Jake can't play Yamoja, so it wasn't being first picked like it usually would be.
Sure. Frost, you had a question?
Oh, yeah. Do you like playing Yamoja? If, for the money on the line, Genetics, would you play Yamoja every game?
Always just banned, unfortunately.
If she wasn't banned, if they didn't respect
every game. I play Yamoja mid roll. I play Yamoja off roll.
I think I could play the Pro League on Yamoja, no lie. I mean, you just spam the 2, right? You just spam the 2, and you win fights. You just spam the 2, win fights. That's
it. You just build properly. It's quite hard to do if you don't know the Omi. But then you just build properly, and then all you do is just ult late game on people that don't have an escape, and then spam 2 on your backline.
Spam
and then
the 2 on your backline, and you win fights.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. It's
That's
very
what I'm
simple.
saying. I think I could do it, man. I can do that.
I think at this point, though, might go on a tangent due to the nature of like in Street Fighter, there was one player who was very dominant with one character, and the only way that he could get taken down was it's not that everyone ganged up on him, but they kind of each individually pushed him to his limit so that everyone could have information, and that's sort of like maybe the time. We've got 2 weeks left, right? Right now, if I can't beat your Aphrodite, I will play against your Aphrodite because maybe there will be information public for one of the other teams to beat your Aphrodite. And then I'll know, maybe I won't be the one to get the answer, but I will take as much info for somebody else to pick it up because there's rarely a character that is ever so dominant for so long. Someone's got to figure it out.
Basically,
I'm surprised Ben didn't just
Go ahead.
pick the Aphrodite away from him.
Yeah, that's
Ben's
it.
got a good afro.
basically
The
what
problem
Frost is
is-
saying is they're trying to crowdsource the strats against the Dardes Afro.
In a way, sure. But if one team is dominant, which SSG is, and it's one player, one character, the fastest way to get rid of it is not to ban it because that's another game where you have no variables.
Sure.
It's let them have it, and then we just have more information out there.
Genetics, I
Yeah,
cut
I
you
mean,
off there.
Yeah, no, I mean, Frost is right though. It's like I said earlier with the cycles. Like someone has to let it open, and someone has to take the hit, and then what will happen eventually is let's say there's a god that's unbeatable. Let's say for example Paul's Hell, right? It's getting banned again. It wasn't being picked at all. As soon as they lose on it, I guarantee they'll lose confidence. So that's what happens with SPL players generally. If they lose on a pick that's unbeatable and they lose it, they'll be like, hold on. And it'll drop down slightly in the rankings and you have to keep beating it and beating it. And so I'm pretty sure people are hoping they start playing Aphrodite and Hera.
Sure.
And that's what they'll try and do before Worlds. But it's not happening.
Any final thoughts on this set that I didn't mention?
SSG banned Persephone from first pick every single game this week. Against every team.
Put that in your head, SPL teams.
I mean, that character's just busted all around. She needs to be nuked. I cannot stand her. Okay, in the support series, this is going to be spoilers for like whoever's watching it because that's P and I'm on the C's or something like that.
Sure.
I hate her. I did not level her too.
I hate her.
And we still won. I built full cooldown 1, 3, and 4 and just ran at people and ulted them. Spear the Magus, low nose mask. That's all you have to do. She is that stupid.
She's a dumb god. I always used to be like, I used to kind of like downplay her. I think it's because I used to never
Yeah,
play
you
against
did.
somebody. I never played against somebody who was like really, really good at her. Right. And because like, you play Ravana and you just WK at her and you just kill her. Right. That was always my thing. And after watching the games, I think it was the Obey Radiance guy. So we're going to get to it. But like after watching Tings on that fucking purse, I was like, that god is so annoying and so much unavoidable, obnoxious damage. Like, she should be a guardian that does nothing other than CC, and that's it.
That's what I did. And she's still
Make her one root, turn her into a guardian, and be done with it. Like, just no damage. Take the damage away.
That's a good segue into the next set of the week here. Let's talk about the Big Man Tings Persephone because that's one of the main notes I had about this Radiance versus Obey set. This one again I think was a 3-game set. Obey took one. I know last week on the cast, both Miff and I said that if Radiance even win one game, the set is basically over for Obey. And Obey took that to heart and they won game 1. But then I think Radiance showed their might here, and Big Man Tings especially looked very good on the Persephone. You guys,
The
initial
second
thoughts
game was
on...
good. The third game, they got rolled.
Sure. Am I misremembering?
I don't know if the second game just took the wind out of their sails or what, but they looked real clean game 1.
Yeah, game 1, they won. It was a long game, I think 50 minutes, but nice win for Obey, I would say. Probably the best game we've seen out of a Jungle Osiris.
Yeah. I'm surprised to see them ban it.
Sino promised me he would stop, and he keeps playing Warriors in the jungle.
Warriors and Arachne.
Warriors and Arachne, yep.
Oh, that was awful. Oh no! Every fight it was 4v5, and then you just see Sino somewhere pushing mid or Phoenix or something. Yeah, no, but that really, I hope that we can showcase those games in Smite itself. I'm tired of seeing Arachne. It's unfortunate that the only way to counter her, or the best way to counter her, is just teamwork, run her down, as most characters do. But that's the not nearly as many characters can punish you for that lack of coordination the way that she does. And maybe Sino doesn't use it anymore because, as he's seen, these are coordinated teams. They're here for the big money.
Yep.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't know. I've always felt the same about Arachne as I do about Set. Right, where if you engage at the wrong time, like you're dead. Like it's over. Everybody turns on you. You die. It's I don't know.
I think Arachne fits. Do you want to go?
Yeah, I was just gonna say she does. All right, I'm like the stats guy, and everybody hates me for it, especially genetics. But like, she does well in every level of play, at every rank except the SPL. Like, except the SPL.
So does
and I don't know if that's just because it's not Jerio playing it, right, or something along those lines, right? And who's opted to pick it, but the gods better at 1v1ing than any other god in the game. You could get so dynamic with the way that you start to put pressure on the map where you want. You think there's a better 1v1 god in the game?
Kali. No one beats Kali.
Yeah.
Sorry to ruin your fun. Kali, trust me.
All right. For the first 20 minutes of the game.
Oh yeah. No, that's the sure. I was just thinking like full build, 60 minutes. Kali will destroy.
Full build.
Like,
I mean, full build.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think she's good too. I think she's really good in comp too, but no one plays her.
Yeah, I think she's like some of the stuff that you could do. I was talking to Bobby about it the other day. Some of the stuff you could do with her starts, where like depending on which buff you throw your spiders on, you could do like really dynamic level 2 ganks that just set up like weird pressure and just throw everybody off their game. Like I do it a lot just to like mess around, but I don't think anybody's really explored that side of her well enough. And she did catch kind of a huge nerf on that end when they redid the map in the midseason because everything's got so much health now. You could drop 3 spiders and it still won't full clear a camp, right? Which kind of screws her over.
Yeah.
But I still think she's good, but she's like not there.
Sure.
Nobody's executed with her very well.
Just put a web on the enemy red to support solo it with the spiders. There you go.
Genetics, I remember you mentioning earlier on about Obey sort of really trying to quickly deal with objectives, especially with the stone cutting plus either on her or some other things. I think we saw that especially game 1 where they picked up Amma and Osiris and Poseidon and were just taking objectives left and right without even giving Radiance a chance. Is that maybe some of why Osiris is seeing play from Sino because he is able to use stone cutting well?
Yeah,
I don't know if he is, to be honest.
He is. So the thing with Osiris to recognize is that his first 2 autos are extremely fast in his age. I think it's 0.5 maybe. So he applies autos a lot faster. So he's applying executioner and stone cutting again to objectives.
Yeah.
So they've got no matter what mage they got, they're going to shred objectives. I think Osiris is a bit more use outside of that, but I think Sino typically, apart from the Nike phase that he went through, he's always built stone cutting XC. I think Obey's best point right now are doing early objectives. So the Poseidon's good as well for securing them. But I mean, I think he did it in the set before us as well, and he's done it again on Osiris. Just to pick a physical, build those 2 items and do objectives. I think seems to be the plan right now.
Sure. Any thoughts on Radiance this set? I know we sort of focused mainly on Obey, but Radiance are the team that does end up winning this. You know, we see Adapting pick up Cirquet, and we've seen maybe some other Cirquets sort of rise to the top in the SPL in the past couple weeks. Why are we seeing Cirquet sort of come back up in the league?
Because she doesn't necessarily have to build full damage. You can it's got true damage, which scales if you do have any, and then you can do the her passive procs on percentage health. So those are fantastic if you want to go on a little more of a tankier end. And we are seeing like the Glad Shields being picked up, which is exciting, even though the builds are kind of wonky for it. It's an odd cherry to put on that Sunday, I suppose. To me, it feels like Radiance is holding off it reminds me of. I might get some hate for this. The end phases are super boring to me. I feel like either the bottom teams are trying their hardest, but they're the bottom teams, bless their heart, and doesn't really do much, and the top teams don't want to show too much. That's what it comes down to me. All the picks feel about the same. It feels like every team's playing the same thing.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure Saket's a bait, though.
Say that again?
I think Saket's a bait. I'm looking at the KDA, I'm looking at the kills and assists and stuff. Like, generally, you want your jungler to be top 2 involved in kills. Usually support and jungler usually flip it, depends what teams they are, but usually that's what you see across every single team. Saket's not been involved in as many as the ADC, the mid. It's kind of rare. I think she's being carried along there. I think the reason, I'm going to take a guess, one of the most well-known Saket players in the league is Cubo Fred. PK has started doing better. People are probably respecting their picks a bit more. So once a team starts winning randomly, but let's say he's playing Saket, Kamazots, and Scrims, people copy him, and if they see success, then it kind of, even if the character's not good, people might get baited into. I think that's what's happened, and it's with the Thorns as well. Again, it's a character that can smoke in, all drop stuff, press Thorns, and then get out. It just seems like a very, very, very meta character over the last 2 weeks of form with Thorns and physicals for some reason.
Sure. Yeah. All right, any final thoughts on Radiance versus Obey before we get to the last set of the week?
I feel like
Obey's support is a big stinky player.
Frost, go ahead.
I think right now they're just kind of Radiance that is, or just kind of sitting it out here. It's like what was it? Phase 1 going into MSI, they didn't really do anything spectacular, and then boom, Adapting has Adaji. What?
Sure, yeah. I did talk to Adapting about where the Daji came from, and he just said, they were sitting on it, just not showing it in the SPL for almost 3 weeks before MSI, so they were just holding on to some picks, and I think a lot of teams are doing that right now.
Yeah, so I think PK are showing full force. Maybe they have something hidden. Sanguine, I think they're only capable of showing full force. And SSG, I think they're cocky enough to actually show everything because of what you're going to do. They have they got the meta, they have the side meta. They are very well rounded.
Sure.
I think they're saving something. I think Ghost is saving something. I think Radiance have probably got something. I think SSG have got something. I think the other teams like Obey seem to be independently showing stuff. Radiant, like Sanguine, for example, PK all going full force, and then you've got Renegades kind of just not copy, but they do steal picks. So the Aphrodite, the Set, the Erlang, all these picks SSG play, they kind of come in. So it's kind of weird right now, but I'm pretty sure the top teams are definitely saving something for Worlds.
All right, let's move on to the last set of the week. Sanguine versus E United. And this was a very long one. Right, I don't think you were able to even stream on this Mike Game channel on Sunday. Is that right? Did you get a chance?
I did not. Oh, I wasn't scheduled to go, but
sure.
It went so late.
Yeah, it went to
9 o'clock or something like that, 8:50.
Something like that. 3 very long games for, I think almost like a 3-hour-long set here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was
very back and forth.
That's too much smite.
Yeah, a little too much smite for all of us.
Sunday.
Sure. Game 1, Sanguine, take it. I think this was back and forth. It was very long. I'm looking at the gold here on the SmiteProLeague.com site, where we look at all our stats, and 145,000 gold for Sanguine. Must have gone 50 plus minutes at the least. What are you guys' initial thoughts on Sanguine versus United?
That was a lot of smite. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the last game
Sure.
when they were tied 1-1. I think I got a little burned out from the day. 2-2-1 sets.
Yeah.
And I had stream coming up, so I didn't watch the last one. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't care who wins. I'll find it out tomorrow. The sets I did watch, it almost, I don't know. I felt like both teams were just kind of playing sloppy each game. Like I didn't think like anybody was doing anything particularly well or poorly, but I don't know. I like to see United take a game off of Sanguine, who's dropped heavily in the rankings, but still a really good team. But at the same time, Sanguine does Sanguine things.
Sure.
Pulls out the set. I didn't see how the last game went, but it's kind of. I mean, it's the same thing with Obey, right? We have these moments of brilliance. You think they can, they're contending, and then it's just the set doesn't go their way or whatnot. So I think it's again healthy for the league to see that level of competition instead of the 2-0. I think everybody was expecting, or at least 93% of people were.
Sure. Just to give you some context, Wraith, I believe Sanguine won after stealing an FG, after United had stolen an FG and took some Phoenixes. So it really was a back-and-forth game that ended a back-and-forth set, I think. Froster Genetics, any thoughts?
It was a big throw by United.
Big throw by United?
I remember the team fight exactly as well. Like when you're baiting Fire Giant, you want to try and at least proc the animations of the Fire Giant rings, so people have to walk in at least to see the Fire Giant health.
Sure.
And they managed to. No one walked in, so they kept going and going and going. And then when Fire Giant reached a certain threshold, you make a call. Do you want to commit or leash it? I think it got to about 3,000. They're like, no one's here. And then all of a sudden, just 3 people appeared. And at that point, if you leash it, they can pick it back up again or fight you. And then they just kind of went for it. And I think was it an auto? I think it was something. I think it was Merlin, right? I think it might have been a Merlin that stole it, but I might be wrong on that. And it's like a 50-50 at that point, even though you thought it was going to be clean.
Sure.
They should have taken one for the Knights. Have you seen how they are always playing with the FG? I think they could get down 3,000 health. That's nothing. 300, they are like, get off it, take the fight, because I think they value numbers over the Fire Giant. But I think Sanguine ended up panicking there. Like, what do? We've come this far, and they sunk.
It happens to everyone, though. Even the most calm players. It gets to a point where it's like, oh shit, you just gotta. If you've got no secure, for example, like what have they got? They've got a Ras. If the Ras got an ult, then
no, his one does like 1,100 damage. He's nuts.
Every mage is broken, so that's the problem.
Yeah.
You won't catch me arguing about that.
Yeah, but Yanis got banned again. So this is the thing with A United. Hurrywind really good at calling objectives, so they've always been good at that. Yanis, one of the reasons why it gets banned, and then they just kind of misplayed it a little bit, but it was really close. I don't know. Thing is A United's best set, right, or one of the best sets since the roster change.
I would agree. Yes,
they're playing a lot. I think Snoopy played really well as well this week. Snoopy popped off every game.
Yeah, so did you guys hear that Snoopy is not the player with the most deaths in the league anymore?
Yeah, I saw that tweet from Core.
It's inbound now.
Is it really?
He's a support player. It's not his fault. It's the role sucks.
But who's the second? Then it should be another support by that logic.
I think it'd be Snoopy. Might be Snoopy.
No, it's Snoopy right after that.
Yeah, Snoopy is second.
Bobby's got like 182. Snoopy's at 177.
Pretty close.
I think it comes down to tenure and identity.
Sure.
EU still trying to figure theirs out, whereas Sanguine have been doing the same thing for a very long time. Gino right now is, I don't know what to call this, maturing, I suppose. He's on traditional style Guardians. He's got these very tanky, peel-oriented builds, but he too also had that awesome Jake identity where they were known as like fragger supports. So I don't know if this is maturing in a way that, you used to be childish and now you're a full-blown adult, or you used to believe in whimsical things and colorful worlds and now you're bland and corporate, look like everybody else. So I don't know how that's going to afflict his identity or his play style.
Sure.
Some people, I think they're suited for it. Genetics come through. He's playing Terra, so he's like, he's showing up at the office, but it's still casual Friday.
All right, anything I missed about this set before we move on to make picks?
Just they changed their pick commands a lot again. Like they almost won game 1. They freaked out, changed 3 of their picks for no reason.
Who's that? United?
They won the second. Yeah, but they won the second game anyway. But I think generally, like for example, Obey, they literally picked the same stuff 3 out of 4 games. They should have won, in my opinion, these 2 of those games with how they played it. They just threw, but then it didn't get in the head. They still played the same comp, but they practiced.
Sure.
But then United just flipped the switch and changed their comp a bit too much, I think.
Wraith, Frost, anything else, or should we move on to picks?
That about sums it up. Looking like Sanguine is the better team after all, and the first time that United beat them was with this roster. Was kind of like caught them out. Panatom took, I don't know, 4 or 5 different Giannis ults out of nowhere.
Yeah. It's time for our analysts to make the picks for Week 13. I think we're going to start off with our guest here, Genetics. Ghost versus SSG. Who are you picking in this one? This is sort of a battle of the top here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ghost. Ghost have got a good matchup versus SSG, so I can't really see them. They've beaten them in the past. Maybe they'll do it again.
2-0, 2-1?
That's a tough one. I'll say 2-1.
All right, Ghost 2-1 for Genetics here. Frost, how about you? Ghost versus SSG. I'm sure you're on Ghost bandwagon here.
Ghost for sure, but it's tough to tell whether these boys want to go for a win or an experiment. If it is a win that they want, it's going to be 2-0. If it's the usual win experiment, even heavier than the first game, and losing, and then take it to the third, it's 2-1. Do they want to win? Do they want to experiment? I think they're going to just go for a win here. I think it's going to be 2-0.
All right, Wraith. Ghost versus SSG. Who you got?
Yep, I'm going to be the contrarian here. I think Space Station is going to take it. I think it's going to be a 2-1 set. I think that's going to be the match of the week to watch, though. That's the two Titans clashing before the end of the season. Either that or they're so secured in their leads that they troll. Is pretty much the only other option.
Sure.
Given both of those teams, I think there's a 50-50 chance of a really good set or a complete trolling in a cluster.
The only reason it's going to end is because someone has to win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I actually kind of agree with you, Wraithen. I'm going to pick SSG to win this set as well. You know, Cherio's kind of been on a hot streak. I think back-to-back weekends with quadra kills. You know, the momentum has got to be pretty high on that squad. So I'm going to give it to SSG. I think it's going to be a 2-0 for SSG, especially since Ghost struggled against PK. Speaking about PK, that's the next set of Week 13. Sanguine versus PK. Let's start with you, Frost, on this one. Who you got in Sanguine versus PK?
Definitely going to be Knights 2-0, and I think it's going to be a quick one. They've got the confidence to kick up, kick down now with the playing a little more laid back against the top teams. Sanguine is one of those, even though Sanguine has been placing above the Knights, I think the Knights still see Sanguine as being below them in a manner of speaking. So it's going to be a 2-0 for the Knights.
All right, Wraith, how about you? Sanguine versus PK.
PK 2-0. I'm with Frost on this one. I think Sanguine are good. PK's on a roll. They look like they got some momentum. They look like they're figuring it out. I don't think there's any way they lose to Sanguine.
Sounds good. Genetics, round us off here. Sanguine versus PK.
I'm also going to go 2-0 for PK as well. Zapman's been playing really well, and when Zapman steps it up, usually the team starts winning.
That is
and
true.
Zapman's just been playing quite well recently, so fast one, 2-0.
You know, as a Zapman and PK fanboy on this show, I got to vote 2-0 for PK here because, like you said, won a lot of big games versus the top teams, and, you know, I think they're only going to keep it up going into playoffs and Worlds. All right, next game of the week is United versus Obey. Wraith, I think I'm going to start with you on this one. Who you got, United versus Obey?
Obey 2-0, fastest games of the entire season. There is no contest. Bobby comes out swinging. They play the early game objective comp. They get a ridiculous lead, and they blow them out of the water. 17 minutes, both games. Mostly so they don't show up late at my house for dinner.
I was about to say, I should pay you for that.
No, but seriously, I think they 2-0 United. Absolutely. Sure. I've been pretty consistent and voted for them. I think United looks terrible. So unless they figure something out between last week and this week, Obey's going to take it. Obey, I believe like they're on the up and up too, right? They haven't been closing the games out and getting the sets, but they're taking it to the best teams in the league. And I think, I think if it's going to be anything, this is going to be the game where they see success from that.
Sure. Genetics, how about you? United versus Obey. Who you got?
I'm going to go United 2-0. I think Obey's objective comp was kind of like not cheesy, but it's like the healing comp. It comes in for a week, people learn to deal with it, and people learn the counters. You're just doing objectives. They don't want to fire at all. And then it's got a weak fire late game. I think United know how to deal with that. I reckon United just 2-0. Maybe a big a few objectives, but team fight wise, I think United will smash them.
You're biased. You just want a spot next year.
All right, Frost.
He knows he's welcome for it too.
Sure.
Look, he's not even trying to deny it.
I wouldn't mind his fault, but I hope they do well on it.
Who you got, Frost? United versus Obey.
I think it's going to be a 2-0 United as well. Just for, I think this time, please, like if I say it every time, eventually it has to be true, right? The Baskin factor is going to kick in. He's going to get off of these team-oriented, whatever. I almost called it a support because that's what it feels like he's playing. It's just another support. He's going to be on something that he's known for, something that only he could pull off. This is going to be the game to watch, but it's going to be 2-0.
2-0 for United from Frost. I also think United could win. You know, the way I see it is there's only so many weeks that you have Baskin on your team and you don't win the sets, right? So we've got to come to a time where Baskin is feeling finally comfortable in these sets and can start to carry, like I think everyone expects him to. So I hope that's the case in week 13. So I have United winning 2-0. All right, Genetics, we're back to you on this one. Radiance versus Renegades. Who do you think's going to win?
It's really tough. It's a really tough one. I think because the sets quite a shared topic between them. If Ven plays it, I think it's gonna be a close one. I'm gonna say 2-1 Radiance, but I wouldn't be surprised if Renegades managed to run over them for a game. I think Jake's picks and sport have been a lot better than Raws recently, so I think it could be a tight match for sure. But definitely 2-1 Radiance.
All right, Frost. How about you? Radiance versus Renegades.
I'm feeling 2-0 Radiance. I don't think the meta really, or this heavier dive experimentation phase is really going to go well for Renegades. They kind of live off of the carries, whilst Jake has been on the front line a lot, and it sort of leaves your carries vulnerable. With that amount of space in a dive meta, I think it's just way too much, and they're going to get absolutely stomped in the back line.
All right, Radiance versus Renegades. Who you got?
Oh man, I want to see the Renegades do well. I think Radiance is going to win it, but I would love to see some signs of life out of Lazar and the boys. I don't know. I picked Radiance, but I think it could go either way. 2-1. It'll be a Radiance 2-1, but I think the Renegades will show up, but Radiance will close it out.
Sure. Radiance 2-1 for Wraith. Yeah, I'm struggling to pick a winner here. You know, both teams haven't looked great, but they haven't looked particularly bad by any stretch. I think I'm going to give it to Radiance, probably 2-1. Yeah, you know, these teams are so close. It's really hard to choose. I feel like I'm just like flipping a coin at this point. All right, Frost, we're back to you here. Ghost versus Sanguine. Who you got in this one?
Well, unfortunately, last phase, the last Ghost versus Sanguine matchup, they lost after letting Sanguine have, all the comfort picks. I think it was Merlin back-to-back, whilst they were kind of playing odd things in the center, experimenting. I'm just going to say 2-0. There's going to be a lot of trolling. Because I'm a Ghost fan, it's going to be for Ghost, but there is a high possibility of a 2-1 Sanguine.
Sure.
But I'm locking in for Ghost.
Wraith, how about you? Ghost versus Sanguine.
Ghost 2-0.
Nothing more to say about it, huh?
Nope.
All right, Genetics. Ghost versus Sanguine.
Sanguine 2-0.
Oh. Well, now you have to say something. Why Sanguine 2-0?
Okay, I feel like I'm kind of looking at the support. I'm kind of looking Sanguine playing full physical and one mage, Ghost playing full physical and one mage, Hebo a shared pick. I kind of think Sanguine have a good matchman to Ghost. I think they've been scrimming quite a lot based on picks and bans being quite similar. And I reckon if Sanguine show up on time for scrims, I reckon they're going to take it easily. 2-0.
Somebody else saying that Sanguine don't show up for scrims.
Yeah, they have assured me. They have assured me. I interviewed Rongu. They have assured me that they have a system now where they cannot be late to scrims anymore. That they have assured me.
The energy system, the beer system, where they put a pound in for a beer fund if they were late by a minute, and each minute they keep adding to it and then spend it at the end of the year.
That's actually a really good idea. I don't know if it. Yep. I'm pretty sure that's not what Sanguine is doing. But
no, probably not. But
I was about to say I'd show up late and just pay it anyway.
All right, I think I need to make my pick here for Ghost versus Sanguine. Man, that was a really spicy Sanguine 2-0 pick. That's the confidence that I like to see. So I'm gonna back you up here, Genetics. I'll give it to Sanguine 2-0 as well. Last game of Week 13 is Radiance versus Space Station Gaming. I think we have to start with you, Wraith, on this one. Radiance versus SSG. Who you got?
SSG for sure. The only way Radiance takes a game off of them is if SSG is straight up trolling. SSG just look leagues better than Radiance at all points, and
Sure.
I still don't think Radiance are out of their slump. So we'll see.
All right, Genetics. Radiance versus SSG. Who you got?
I love both the boys. I love both the players on the team. I feel like Radiant's dive comp will work less effectively against SSG because they play ping sports. So I'm going to say Space Station, but I think it's going to be a 2-1 Space Station rather than a 2-0, just because of the chaos of the dive comps can maybe throw a spanner in the works for SSG.
All right. Frost, bring us home here. Radiance versus SSG.
2-0 SSG. I think Radiants are going to be brave enough to try to do a dive comp into SSG because they're also another standardized control test because we know how SSG plays. So if it's going to work against anyone, it's going to work against them. It's not going to work against them. SSG are going to take the fight won't start until like 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes, they're going to snowball both games 2-0.
Sure. For me, this fight, this set, I think, really hinges on how Raffer plays. You know, like if the dive works for Radiance, it seems like that's the preferred method of getting wins. And I think the person that is there to stop the dive is Raffer. So if Raffer has a good game, which I believe he will, I think SSG is going to take it. I think they're probably going to take it 2-1.
I don't think anyone protects the backline nearly as well as with the teams and their styles right now. I don't think anyone plays for their backline nearly as well as Rafa does.
Sure.
If anyone's going to stop a full dive, it's going to be him, and alone too.
Yeah.
He started the aura meta before the full physical rush solve meta. Like there's been in the last 3 weeks, there was a rushing heart one solve meta. He started that on Sobek. So if Rafa keeps playing that style, building auras does usually do quite well against dive.
Sure. I don't want to keep Wraith here too long, but if you guys
has a resting heart attack.
if you guys have like any general discussion, I know we have Genetics here, so it'd be a shame not to at least like if you guys have questions, not to take advantage of the fact that he's here to ask those questions.
Why don't people stack mitigations? Is it just not good? I feel like there's so much of it freely available and items that give you health and good prots.
So you mean we're about specifically like Oni's Hunter's Garb, Spirit?
Yeah, like the Oni Spirit, not Lana's. I mean, well, you can do Lana's, but like just like Oni Spirit, and then like somebody who's got a passive or like Amon or two or things like that. Like it's kind of difficult, right? Because you can't really build an item just for the mitigations. You can be tanky, but generally being full tank late game is kind of irrelevant anyway. So you kind of want a mixture. That's why you see a lot of warriors right now, like with like bruiser items, like Sledge is really good, Cactus Shield, like power, prots, health, kind of what dominate. There definitely is like a room for it. So people build learners and like assassin supports, but I don't know. It's just kind of bad. Like, I think Oni's is a really good item, but people just don't like building it. It's just magical defense sucks, dude. I don't like building it. It feels really awful to build.
It feels like it doesn't do anything for me in that immediate time. And this could also be because like support, I don't even know if you do genetics, but supports have a background in card games. And if those items don't do anything for you upon purchase, supports don't want them because they don't play on tempo.
Yeah, no, I just don't like it. I think a lot of people agree with me that building magical defense generally is a lot worse than building physics. So the way an example is, you will see people build like physical defense items just for physicals, but if it comes to magical, you'll see them building like a mantle and a spirits robe because it has both. You never want to build just magical defense. Right. I'm not sure why. I think it's just what everyone feels like building. To be fair, but it's just what's good. Just the meta, I guess.
It feels like the more because you could go a magical defense item or, like you said, the hybrid, but the better option is to just get a damage item. So sort of like I could fend off the physicals, but then kill the magicals myself. And the only other one left would be the Guardian, who wouldn't do much.
Yep.
I got a question about Glad Shield. We sort of seen, I would consider maybe a sharp increase in Glad Shield pickups across the SPL, both in solo and jungle. Whereas, at the start of Phase 2, it was basically like a discarded item because it had lost the sustain. What is sort of the use case for Glad Shield? When should players pick that up?
It's gotta be
So
mandatory. I mean, I talked to Ducky about it the other day.
Really? Because Zeros hates it.
Yeah, Zeros hates it.
After the buffs. After the buffs.
Oh, okay.
I think Zeros even
Yeah.
hated it with the buffs. He said it was mostly just like a
Yeah.
stat stick.
yeah, I'm on the fence for it as well. Like I thought it was actually better before the buffs. I don't think it was buffs because the problem. So what you could get before, you could get a full damage Wukong that would build a Glad Shield, then it'll do bonus damage flat out. And the problem now is if you build a Wukong, you don't build many prots. So the bonus power, the bonus like damage you
Yeah.
get from the prots is worse. And
Mm.
Wukong was the god that abused it the most. You can build on Achilles, for example, but Achilles hasn't really been played and is not really being played that much. So, in my opinion, I don't think the item's actually like that great. Honestly, I think it's being overbought quite a lot compared to just a Void Stone or Void Shield or a Shifters.
Is it
So I
just the
wouldn't- I wouldn't
stats?
build it.
Like people like the stats too much. It has too many important things, like health, cooldown, power, and protection. I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah. Oh, it's got good base stats, but not for the cost. It's more like a 2,500 for those. That's quite bad.
Sure.
I think
Pretty
it
high.
sounds dumb, but the tier, like the cost increases per rank is pretty nice. Like building like a 650 into like like 1150 or something. It feels nice to build compared to some items. For example, Void Shield, right? If you buy the tier 2 flat out, it's 1,600
Yeah.
compared to Berserker, but the Glad's tier 2, which is 1,150. So
Sure.
I'd say it probably feels nice to build, but I don't know.
So-
I think it scales poorly.
It's like Pridwin. God, you got to start it off at 900.
The gem, what's it called? Gem of Fate. It's like 900 gold. I built it in
Yeah.
Assault, to be fair, but it's just bad in Conquest.
I also think the ones that do go the Glad route, it's just not being built proper. If you're going for the Glad Shield, I feel like you need the full build commit to it, and for that you need the hybrid items because that's where you get more overall protections. Like yes, Sovereignty can have more physical protections than Thebes, but Thebes has like 120 of both if you combine them.
Yeah.
So you'd need Thebes, you'd need Mantle, you'd need the Height of the Urchin, etc.
Yeah, it's kind of tough though because then you're just building a bunch of prots, and prots kind of doesn't matter. Like it's kind of weird. Like, do you want to do damage or do you be tanky? If you're building for tankiness, then you may as well just build a damage item, right? Like Glads isn't that broken where building just Glads is enough to replace a damage item, in my opinion. Because it procs a plus 60% of it. Like 60% of HP is a lot. How do you get them low in the first place? If you're triple diving, maybe it's a good pickup. But if you're the only one diving, I mean, you can't even get him. You can't get them low enough in the first place. So therefore, there's no point building the item.
Sure.
So
I
on
guess
dive,
that's true. By the time you get them low, all your abilities are down.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said
Yeah.
to people, like, how do you get them low in the first place? Do you use all your abilities and wait for cooldowns? Well, that's not
Yeah,
gonna
a
happen.
lot of people were going nuts because they're like, "Oh, Fenrir, Glad Shield, double protections with the ultimate." But like, you have to get them below 60%
So
first.
what?
How are you gonna get them there?
And then you
it's-
buy
it's-
so you do like an extra 100 damage, maybe.
The passive
Yeah, right,
especially
exactly.
seems like very, very situational. And there are kind of not that many situations where the passive is really being effective. And especially Zero's pointed out that even when you are like fully stacked on protections, it's like 74 extra damage.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
so
over 4 abilities, that's
sure, over 4 abilities, but still
288.
I mean, but that damage will get
10% of
mitigated,
somebody's
right?
health.
I mean, but that damage will get mitigated, and it has to take into account protections, and like I think, I don't know, especially
You're better off with a Horde Seeker.
Yeah, you're better off with a
exactly,
Heart
yeah.
Seeker. You're better off with. I feel like even Erendite, especially in the dive meta, Erendite on solo
Yep.
laners feels really good.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I think it should be reworked again. Honestly, I think they've. I think they've messed up. It was being built on Wukong. They should have made it. They should change the numbers again. I think because they nerfed it. They nerfed it before it even came out, right? They nerfed it from 35% of items down to 25%, and it's just not even being picked that much.
Unless, for some reason, for Season 8, we're about to be able to build more than 6 item slots, then I could see that being a thing. But right now, we have way too many items that could go into a full post-selling boots build that Glad just doesn't make it anywhere there.
yeah,
Unless suddenly we have like 8 slots or something. Like, okay,
That'd be
we're
nice.
playing Yu-Gi-Oh!
I think
Yeah.
the Glad Shield that the pros are using is before this weird change, right? Where it's scaling based off power still, right? Not protections yet.
This one's on protections, I think.
Yeah,
It's
some
on
skills
prots
off
already.
rots.
Oh,
Yeah, they've
this one is
already
on
changed it.
prots.
Yeah, that's why it was good before. It just scaled off of level. So
Right? Yeah.
Fred can rotate and abuse it, but now it's like
You build it on
That-
junglers.
that's always been the problem with Smite. Is like ever since you always wanted to reach a certain amount of prots, right? And there was a certain amount of prots that were efficient because, like Titan's Vein, for example, scaled when you got to 200 prots. It would work out. I think it's like 4.7 prots would equal 1% more prots or some dumb mess like that.
Mm.
But
There's about
now,
200 of each.
now it's like a flat line, right? Because all flat pan just ignores it basically.
Mm.
So building less prots is now like better as a hybrid build. But the hybrid items just don't have any mitigation on it, so you get one shot late game. So it's just if you can't snowball with building hybrid items, you just lose, which makes Warriors bad.
So you
Anything
don't
else
like
you
these
guys,
four physical comps?
Oh no, I hate them. I don't get it. I think it's really stupid. I mean, the thing is, it doesn't matter, right? Because if the team that's the best team does it, then you have to do it because
Sure.
you can't beat them any other way.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter fundamentally if they're playing the game wrong or if someone thinks that way. If you can't beat them, then you're not going to change the meta because you're not good enough to do it. But it shouldn't be a thing, right? Sov's good, Jadems is good. Surely someone can just rush Aura's first item and be like, okay, well you do no damage now, so just focus the mage, right? And then 4 fizz, and you build 4 fizz defense items. I don't know. It should be bad on paper, but it's not.
It's not because if you do go those defense items, that lowers your DPS on top of already having that innate tankiness.
I guess, yeah. It's also because of a physical's earlier better, right? So you can play the map. You can play the map how you want on Boots Pass by, and then they've got to wait 2,100 gold for their auras. And by that time, can you get a big enough XP lead or map like pressure that you can abuse the window? And like that's why Ghost did, right? Ghost really good at pressuring the map. PK really good at pressuring that. Like teams like that kind of run in and invade buffs on timers can abuse those windows, like between like 4th and 5th blue spawn before they get auras, and then that's it. If they get a few on the roll, they just won't stop.
Especially now too, it's different from what do you call it? Different from phase 1, where we didn't have the Atalantis bow that we have now. We might just end up seeing like even Cherio picking up Executioner. Sino already does it. Like I said, that boy plays 2 metas ahead of the curve to the point where it's detrimental to him. And once everyone else finally gets to that meta, he's the king of it. But until then, he's too far in the future to make any sense.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown this week. Be sure to catch us every week, Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/SmiteGame. If you have any ideas for future guests or future player interviews, please feel free to DM me on Twitter at APAM2 or at APAM Productions. And finally, if you want to catch extended cuts of my discussions with the analysts or my conversations with pro players, please subscribe and watch them on our YouTube channel, APAM Productions on YouTube. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you guys next week. Bye. This week, I had the pleasure of speaking with Wolfie, the mid laner for Obey, to talk about Phase 2 and Phase 1, and look forward to playoffs and Worlds. Check it out.